During the needs assessment, while you are qualifying the opportunity, your goal is to establish the degree of difficulty present. In scenario 1, in the graph, the black baseline represents the results the customer was expecting based on their current situation. The green line represents the actual performance or results they are receiving. The yellow line represents the anticipated performance or what they think they should or could be receiving in terms of performance or results. The gap between the green line and the yellow line represents the perceived opportunity for improvement. The greater the gap is, the more motivated the customer is to consider other alternatives or solutions. Scenario number 2 presents a very different situation. In the graph, the black baseline represents the results the customer was expecting based on their current situation. The red line represents the actual performance or results that they are receiving. The gap between the black line and the red line represents a shortfall and demand for improvement. The greater the gap is, the more motivated the customer is to consider other alternatives or solutions. Scenario number 3 presents a third possibility. In the graph, the green baseline represents the actual performance or results that the customer is receiving. The black line represents the results the customer was expecting based on their current situation. The gap between the green line and the black line represents no perceived opportunity for improvement. This gap represents an unmotivated customer who won't be interested in other alternatives or solutions. This gem from Jim Cathcart says so much about the importance of fully understanding the opportunities presented to you before diving in to offer a solution. In selling, like in medicine, we must remember that prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. As discussed in personality profiles and patterns, individuals have needs based on their personality style. In addition, you must take into consideration corporate or organizational needs, which can be divided into 4 potential categories: financial, increased profits, maintaining margins with better alternatives, reduction of costs. Image, prestige, perception, representing a brand that is considered prestigious or top of the line. Performance, product performance, staff productivity or performance, company morale or attitude. Adherence to rules, regulations, policies, and procedures, both internal and external. Maintaining corporate conformance, corporate agreement, and/or purchasing contract. Quality system, such as ISO 9000, 14000, etc. Government rules and regulations. Please define what a questioning strategy is. What information is of value to develop a questioning strategy? Please define what a questioning strategy is. A plan of what questions that you intend to ask, what order you will be asking them in, and how you intend to ask them to achieve the desired outcome you seek. Going from point A to point B by drawing a logical conclusion. One of the best examples of a questioning strategy is from the movie A Few Good Men, starring Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise, and Demi Moore. Lawyers for the defense spend the evening planning their strategy against Colonel Jessup and decide to take a huge risk by attacking his primary weakness, his ego. In doing so, they are able to get him to admit that he ordered the code red. What information is of value to develop a questioning strategy? This section focuses on the need for an assessment template that triggers the salesperson to ask the right questions to establish needs. Using a standard protocol, standard operating procedure, is essential to your success. General information: size of company, number of employees, annual revenue, who are their customer and competitors, etc. Specific information: what is important to them, supplier selection process criteria, payment history, internal issues, etc. Any information that is related to the industry or market that you service and the potential solutions that you may offer a client based on your product offerings. An unsophisticated, uncomplicated selling environment demands much less of a salesperson. As the complexity increases, tools like an assessment template are increasingly valuable. The template can include full-length sentences or trigger words. The secret to using these questions or trigger words is how you ask the questions. If you rattle down the list like a hospital admissions clerk doing a patient intake form, then the exercise is pointless. The key is to use your imagination, insert your personality, be creative, and even excited and somewhat animated, depending on the situation, of course. Here's an old example from my past. I learned the value of an assessment template in the office equipment business. Low-end copiers capable of automated two-sided copying were being introduced into the marketplace. Up to that time, if people did two-sided copying, it was a manual process, and it was very frustrating because it usually resulted in paper jams. My assessment template had trigger words on it, which included two-sided copying. If I simply asked, "Do you do two-sided copying?" which is a closed-ended question, I was going to get the following answers: no, sometimes, I used to, but the paper jams are too annoying, or something to that effect. Instead, I would ask something like this: if there was an easy, convenient, and cost-effective way to reduce the size of documents in file folders and binders and cut down on the need for document storage space, how would this improve your situation? The customer might guess that I was referencing two-sided copying, and if they did, I would say yes. Then, without hesitation, I would press on. If they told me that this was something they already do or had attempted to do, I would ask for details, knowing all the while that it was usually an exercise in frustration. Sometimes I ended up repeating the question and emphasizing the words easy, convenient, and cost-effective. After hearing them out, I would also need to gather additional information to prepare a cost justification. I needed to know what their overall copy volume was, a conservative percentage estimate of their copying that would become two-sided, and their supply or paper costs. In the vast majority of instances, this approach resulted in the generation of much larger revenues. The increased capital cost of the equipment was offset by the savings in supplies, and best of all, I ended up with a very happy customer. Those who followed the more traditional approach to selling would ask about two-sided copying point blank. Would you be interested in two-sided copying? If the answer was automatically no, then they had to decide if they wanted to press the issue. If the answer was yes or maybe, then they often put themselves into a situation where they might have to begin explaining, going into selling mode, and as soon as this happens, you risk the customer shutting down on you. Whenever you introduce a feature, prospects automatically see a price tag. In addition, if it is a new technology, then they may also see problems. Therefore, by focusing on the feature first, rather than the resulting outcome, minimizing the need for storage space and reducing supply costs, you risk opening the floodgates for objections and change the direction of the conversation from information gathering to selling and justifying before it is time to do so. The approach we recommend is asking questions, identifying implied needs, then asking more questions in order to convert implied needs into bona fide needs or must-haves. More often than not, successful outcomes are determined before you even enter the customer's office. Your well-planned physical preparation and purposeful mental practice in advance will ensure that you aren't stuck when it comes to asking the next brilliant question. It's not the prospect's fault if you don't know what to say. Learning Spotlight number 3. It's time to review what we've covered so far. Each question in the quiz has a 90-second time limit, and the quiz has a 15-minute time limit. You cannot pause the quiz once you begin. The quiz includes many types of questions, including true or false, drag and drop, multiple answers, etc. Read the questions carefully and make sure you understand what is being asked before submitting your response. Many of the questions or variations of them will be included in the final exam. You will be graded, and the passing grade for the quiz is 70%. You will have 3 chances to attain a passing grade. If you fail to attain a passing grade after 3 attempts, you will be locked out of the course. You will have an opportunity to review the quiz responses upon successful completion. If you wish to review the previous slides and sections, do so before advancing. Upon completion of the quiz, please click on the green Next button with the white arrow in order to advance to the next step in the learning path. This concludes step number 6 of the learning path. Please click on the green Next button with the white arrow in order to advance when you're ready to proceed.